Hi, Mandy Curry with Healthy Kids Inc. Thank you for being here for another interview series with our friend Lisa Lineberg as we talk about the paleo lifestyle. So we're so anxious to be able to feature this. This is a really important adjustment in our healthy eating lifestyle. We really want to be able to educate and show our viewers and fans what this is all about. So Lisa has been in the health and wellness industry for more than 20 years. So she's going to share with you her journey and really trying to adopt this lifestyle and what a difference that it's made on her and her family. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Good, I love it.
Great.
Thank you. All right, so you've been in health and wellness now for 20 plus years.
Yes.
And doing, coaching, you've had your own business, you've done a little bit of everything.
Correct.
And then when did you transition into the paleo lifestyle?
You know, I think it was, I was really thinking about that today, and I think it was about 2009 is when that started. So at least 4 years.
4 years now. And
yes.
What even prompted you to look at this?
Well, nutrition is my love, my passion, and I was working out at CrossFit.
Yeah.
I joined CrossFit and heard some people talking about it, and in my training that I had nutrition-wise, that was not really what we were taught. So it really intrigued me, and I started learning more about it, bought some books, the Paleo Diet by Lauren Cordain and the Primal Blueprint by Mark Sisson, and it just made sense.
Yeah.
It really did. So, you know, we jumped in. Now I have 2 kids, so it was, I shouldn't say jumped in because it was a slow toe in the water, part of the foot, the ankle, the calf, you know.
Yeah, to really just test it.
Absolutely.
So tell us what the paleo lifestyle is all about. What does this diet consist of?
Well, it consists of what we consumed before the agricultural revolution. That's really the best way to describe it. So meats, ton of vegetables, fish, eggs, nuts and seeds, some fruit, and healthy fats. You know, what was available, what was given to us. So.
Nothing processed, or limiting the processed foods as much as possible.
You know, unfortunately, we aren't living in 10,000 BC, so there's, you know, you have to adapt it to today, but primarily, yes.
Gotcha. So talk a little bit about the meats then, because that's a big thing, because we always hear go for lean meats, but really that's not the case with this.
Correct. And I think first you have to look at the source of your meats. And I know some people say, well, it's so expensive to get high quality meat. And my first thing is, what I tell people is, if you're going to spend money, spend it on the highest quality meat that you can buy, because you want to know, you know, how was your meat raised? Was it fed this feed that your animal was not supposed to eat? You know, you even hear stories in the news of animals that were fed candy, you know, when there was a shortage of feed. So it's crazy stuff. So it's important to know where your food comes from, if at all possible, if you can find that out. So high quality meats. The lower the quality meat, the more you do want to pay attention to the fat content, in my opinion, because all the toxins are stored in the fat. So the lower quality meats are going to have more toxins in them. So if you get the lower quality meats, I usually tell people to go ahead and trim a lot of the fat off.
Gotcha.
As you move up to the higher quality meats that you know were raised properly, then leave that fat on there, and by all means enjoy it.
Wow, that's great. So higher quality meats then would be...
The highest quality, let's take beef for example. Okay, grass-fed beef is the highest quality beef. That means that the cows only ate what they were supposed to eat their entire life, because some cows are grass-fed up to a certain point, and then they're finished off with some feed at the end. So that would probably be the next step down. So if you can get it grass-fed and finished the whole way through, that's going to have so many more nutrients in it than, you know, the grain-fed beef that's out there. You're going to get a lot of omega-3s, a lot of what's called CLA, more vitamins, a lot of B vitamins in that meat. So, you know, you're getting more bang for your buck. So, you know, you've heard people say, well, you can spend it at the grocery store now, or you can spend it at the doctor when you're older. And I know sometimes that's hard for people to really look down the road, but you know, how does your body get its vitamins and minerals? From food. That's how you get it.
So talk about the paleo diet. So the paleo diet does not include grains or dairy.
Or dairy, right.
So
or limited dairy.
Okay, and what's the reason behind that?
Well, the grains, unfortunately, grains are very toxic. And, you know, we could get into probably a whole discussion about wheat for hours and hours. But grains do contain what they call toxins in them and poisons. Phytates, lectins, you know, things that your digestive system is going to rebel and try not to ingest because it can wreak havoc on your digestive system. And if you look at people who have excessive, say, wheat allergies like celiacs, and they're a very small percentage, but we do have to pay attention to that because they will keep you from absorbing a lot of the nutrients from your food. Those grains do. So if you look at someone, say, who has celiac, they are very deficient in, say, calcium and magnesium, and not just celiacs feel those effects from the grains. So the other thing with grains is the grains today aren't the grains of yesterday. They've all been not only genetically modified, they have actually been hybridized into a whole new crop. So really, the bread that you're eating today, it really cannot be considered food. The way it's been modified. And no one ever bothered to test it on the people who were ingesting it to see what the ramifications were. So the other issue with grains is, you know, it raises your blood sugar, and we're dealing with a high blood sugar diabetic epidemic, I believe, in our country right now. So the blood sugar factor. In fact, in the Wheat Belly book, Dr. Davis, they did this experiment, and 2 pieces of wheat bread raised these participants' blood sugar higher than a Snickers bar.
Oh my gosh.
So, you know, you have to really look at what you are ingesting. And the grains of today, most of them contain high fructose corn syrup, chemicals, additives. So there's a host of reasons not to eat grains.
Not to eat them.
For sure.
Now what about the dairy?
Dairy, you know, the issue is also with the way the animals are raised, you know, so whatever they're eating is, you're getting in the meat, you're getting it in their dairy too. So you have to be wary of that. Digestive issues with dairy, also the effects on your blood sugar. You know, dairy does have milk sugar in it, which does raise your blood sugar. So there is a lot of issues with dairy as well. You can almost group dairy and grains, those same issues that go along with it. Yes.
Wow, that's great. So you really try to limit it to then vegetables. Fruits then, are all fruits fair game?
Yes, all fruits are fair game, but fruits you want in a smaller quantity than your vegetables.
Okay. Yeah. What about raw versus cooked? I mean, is there a preference? Or is
no preference.
Okay, so you can cook your vegetables and and we'll talk a little bit about some healthy oils, but you like coconut oils and I assume olive oils are
olive oil, yes, absolutely.
Good. And then let's talk about butter.
Butter. We were just talking about butter.
Yes, yes. So butter is okay.
Butter is wonderful. Yeah. If you have anything in your refrigerator that doesn't just say, you know, cream, you know, natural 100% cream, and that's it, you know, sweet cream butter, then don't buy it. I mean, you buy those products that say healthy spread. Well, what's in that spread, you know? And what happens is we look at the nutritional information, but really what you need to do is go down into the ingredients. That's where you find the information. That's really the key. And if most of the margarines and spreads out there have hydrogenated oils in them, which anything that says hydrogenated is a trans fat, which is a man-made fat, which is just gives you so many issues. We weren't made to ingest those man-made fats. But butter is wonderful. Butter, if you can find real butter, and especially going back to grass-fed, the grass-fed butter, which is, I was telling you, I even got it at Sam's.
Wow,
so it's getting more mainstream. You get vitamins A, vitamin D, vitamin K, so a lot of vitamins in there, and it's actually good fat, and especially for children. They need that saturated fat.
To help with their brains, and their bodies.
Yes,
yes. I think, and you bring up a really good point that, you know, even if you don't have access to a Whole Foods or a specialty place, that you can still go to Sam's, you can go to Walmart. You're finding some of your produce at Walmart, at Kroger's too. Right. So that's becoming more mainstream now, which is really nice.
And I think that's going to continue. I definitely see that, those foods being more accessible.
Right. So how does your body felt then? So you've been on this transition for 4 years now, roughly. How's your body feel, or what changes did you notice as you were going through it?
Well, I think the biggest, there's two big changes that I've noticed. Well, no, actually 3. But anyway, the first one is sustained energy. The highs and lows gone. I mean, I never have that afternoon lull where I feel like I would need to take a nap or have some more caffeine. The other thing is my skin. The feel of my skin, like I used to get really bad dry skin in the wintertime. No, none of that anymore. And then just longer periods of time of just, I don't get hungry as often. where I'm giving my body the foods that it needs to function. You know, I'm not hungry in 2 hours after I eat. You know.
So do you just eat 3 meals a day, or do you do some small snacks in between? Is there any right or wrong?
There's no rhyme or reason. I have really learned to eat when I'm hungry.
Nice, yeah.
And stop when I'm full, and recognize those. Now, do I still stress eat and do those things? Of course, okay? But I've learned to listen to my body, and I think we've all forgotten how to do that. You know, I was working with a client recently that really just, it was like an aha moment for me, because she said, this is for the first time in my life, I actually feel what hunger is. And I just thought that was fascinating.
Wow,
like
she never
real
let herself
hungry,
even get to that
right?
point.
Because you know how you hear, oh, eat small meals throughout the day. Don't go longer than 2 or 3 hours. Well, that really, why? Like, you know, there's no sense. But if you're eating a low-fat diet and a high-sugar diet, your blood sugar's coming down, and you have to eat. You're starving. So you never get to that point when you adopt a paleo lifestyle. You never get to that point where you're just starving, ravenous, where you just have to have something to eat right then.
Wow.
It's
that
nice not
really
to have that.
Neat. Okay, so talk about your kids. So your kids have, they're joining on this journey, which is exciting.
They have no choice.
Yeah, I love it. That's great.
I'll buy the groceries.
That's great. I think that's wonderful, though. And they're totally on board.
They're on board. I mean, trust me, they don't eat everything, and they still have their treats, and there are certain things in my house that aren't paleo, but you know, I'd say I have them on board. My daughter, who's 11, she's probably on board 90% of the time. My son, he's 7, I'll give him 70, 75%.
Wow.
So,
but I like what you said about you try to create this safe haven at home.
Yes.
I mean, that's where, you know, everything in your home is healthy, because what happens outside of the home, we can't always determine or predict.
They're going to be at parties, at functions, you know, like you were talking about, they get treat bags.
Exactly.
And, you know, they're going to be with family and go out to eat and go places. And, you know, I want that to be, it's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay.
It's an experience, obviously.
It's right.
You want them to be able to experience it.
But they've learned, too, how to make better food choices.
Yes.
I really feel like they have, because we have just really worked on what this all means. I didn't just shove it in front of them without an explanation. I mean, my kids know how to read labels. They know about ingredients, and they help me in the kitchen when they can, when it's things that they can do. And so I think that's helped educate them as well. It's an important part of it.
Do you notice differences in their energy levels too? I'm sure you probably don't see the huge ups and downs again with their energy.
I will tell you a funny story that my son, there are certain foods that just make him crazy, and I'm sure you've experienced that. Red licorice.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so red licorice, I call it the trifecta of danger. You've got white flour, red dye, and corn syrup, all in one yummy treat.
Great.
And his personality will change, like if he gets red licorice somewhere. So
funny.
So I can tell when he has eaten that way. When he's eaten something, he's just more, he doesn't focus.
Right.
He's kind of just like off the
all
wall.
Over.
Yeah,
yes.
all over.
Yeah.
But focus is the big thing.
biggest
And his sleep is always disturbed when he's had a lot of treats like that. A big difference in his sleep.
So he gets up in the middle of the night or just doesn't
Yes.
sleep well?
Yeah, he'll get up, or he's restless all night. Harder for him to fall asleep. He might wake up earlier than normal. I have noticed that as well.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's nice that they see the value and the benefit, and they're starting to want to do it themselves. I mean, that's the ideal point to get to. And like you say, I mean, this is a slow process, and it doesn't happen overnight.
No.
Yeah, but you can see a huge difference after 3 to 4 years, though.
Definitely.
Nice.
So it's worth it. And you know, now my kids are getting older that they can go to the pantry and get something.
Yeah.
So I better have items that are on the approved list in the pantry.
That's good. So
they're going to get them.
That's nice. I think that's awesome. So we talked about a couple of resources, and you have a few resources that we can share too, and we'll put these on the show notes for the rest of our viewers then too. But talk about some books that you've really loved through this process.
My favorite book is probably The Primal Blueprint by Mark Sisson. Because it's not too sciencey, easy to understand. So that's the first book I always recommend to people. And then I really love the book Wheat Belly. It really explains all about the wheat industry. One of my favorite cookbooks is called Well Fed, and it is all primal paleo recipes in there. Very flavorful, you know, don't have to make very many adjustments in the recipes. And then later we'll make a recipe from the book called Eat Like a Dinosaur, which is geared toward kids.
Perfect.
It's by this couple. They call themselves the Paleo Parents, and they have 3 boys that they're raising. And you know, they started their boys at a younger age. I wish I would have known now. I wish I would have known it then, like when my daughter was a baby. I would have changed it on. If you started from the beginning, you know, you wouldn't have to go back and change. But that's okay, you know.
Well, those are good resources, and I can't wait for us to feature this. We're going to do chicken nuggets, right? Yay, I can't wait. It's just perfect for kids. So as we wrap this up, I want to talk a little bit about childhood obesity and your thoughts on that, because it's such a huge issue right now, and you kind of have your own thoughts as to what may be prompting some of this. So share with us.
It's a multifaceted issue for sure, but 2 of the main reasons, let's put the activity aside, because we all realize that they don't get as much PE at school, as much recess time, all that stuff, as we did growing up, even just being out in your neighborhood. But I think the first thing is when we adopted a low-fat lifestyle. I think that's probably the biggest. You would say, well, how does that lead to obesity? Most people just don't see the connection there, but we went to higher sugar products. We just I remember when SnackWells came out. I was like, hey, I can eat these. There's no fat in them. I'll eat the whole pack of devil food. There was devil food cookies. I love those.
Oh, that's great.
Anyway, I digress, but I think that's a big part of it is we started feeding our kids low fat, which meant higher processed, higher sugars, more chemicals, more additives, more dyes, and then we're not, you know, fat is what makes you full. And what I think is very interesting, there was a test that they did called the stomach emptying time test, gastric emptying time test. So they took fats, carbohydrates, and proteins and did them by themselves. So they took carbohydrates alone, so say it would be just a piece of white bread or a bowl of white rice. Had the people ingest it, and those carbohydrates emptied from their stomach within 45 minutes. 45 minutes, it's gone.
Oh my gosh.
So, okay, so think about that. Protein, they did protein by themselves. That took about two hours for the protein to empty your stomach. Fat takes 3 to 4 hours to empty from your stomach. So if you look at that, if you're eating a high carbohydrate diet, you're hungry. You never feel satiated. Not to mention you're not getting the vitamins and minerals that you need for those bodily processes. So you're always looking for something. And so I think that's a big part that leads to it. So you're always looking for something to eat. And then, you know, the low fat part, then we weren't giving the kids the nutrients that they need. So I think, you know, I think that's, to me, that and the addition of all the processed foods, you know, eating all the chemicals and additives, I think are the biggest factors leading to childhood obesity.
Do you have any advice for parents who are wanting to make this transition to a healthy lifestyle? Because you've coached many families over the years. I mean, how do they get to this point?
I think that first of all, they have to be patient and say, I've got to just take little steps at a time, because it can be very frustrating. If you decide to come into your house and do a whole overhaul, you're gonna fail. You didn't intend to fail, but it's just too much. We work, we have activities, everything. You've just got to take little bits at a time and be patient. So maybe you pick one thing. Maybe you decide, okay, I'm gonna go to real butter. I'm going to work on my fats first, and so we're going to go to real butter. We're going to start using coconut oil, only olive oil. Let's just work on the fats first, and we're going to make sure that every meal we have fat at every meal. You know, there's step one.
Nice.
And then you pick a step two. Maybe you say, okay, now we're going to look at, we're not going to eat cereal anymore, which is a biggie in everybody's house.
That's huge.
I mean, that's traumatic.
Yes.
I mean, my kids they still beg for it. Will you buy some cereal at the store? No. So
that's good.
So, you know, I think about what we eat for meals. You know, if you're eating, let's think about it this way. Say at breakfast, the food manufacturers try to make their foods look healthy. They're going to make it look as healthy as possible. And I think your friend who spoke about it said the same thing. I was like, oh, you're so right. Just like, you know, and you don't turn it over and look at anything else. But so say for breakfast, you feed your child cereal with skim milk. Okay, so there's no fat in there anywhere. And you give them a glass of juice or a piece of fruit, and you think, well, fruit's healthy, you know. By itself, yes, it is healthy. So what are they getting? The cereal is sugar, the skim milk is sugar, the fruit is sugar. There's no fat in there, there's no protein in there, and an hour or two later, they're just empty.
Starving.
They're starving. And so say they're at school, and then their brains can't function. They're hungry. They didn't get any fat to feed their brain. So it's just, like I said, little steps. Or maybe you work on breakfast for a while and say, okay, we're going to start introducing eggs at breakfast.
Nice.
Or find some things that you can fix. You know, or maybe take it one meal, whatever. You know, it's got to be small steps.
That's great. What do your kids eat for breakfast? For
breakfast, we have several things that we eat. My daughter will eat eggs.
Yeah.
So that's good. So I make these mini egg muffins.
Yeah.
They don't have a crust or anything on them. I can make a bunch of those, or I make quiche to have. We always have some sort of breakfast meat, either you know, bacon or sausage, ham, whatever. And then it might be, now we still do, they do like oatmeal.
Oh, yeah.
And so we will do oatmeal, and I add protein powder in the oatmeal to get some protein into them, and then I put butter in there too. Nice. And then we have some bacon on the side.
Great, yeah.
So, you know, it's not perfect.
Yeah, that's
but
good,
I would love if my kids would eat eggs every day.
Sure.
But my son is just not on the egg track. And I do have some recipes like for muffins that don't have any grains in them, that have a lot of fat in them. So some things like that. Just have to get creative.
So we talked a little bit earlier about the Lunchables, because every kid wants to take Lunchables to school. We've had that battle in our house. I don't know. I don't know either, but it's really hard. And I've offered to make, let me make, you know, a Lunchable that's even better, and that just doesn't have the same appeal. So what do you guys do for lunch?
For lunch, like for my son, sometimes he'll take, if we do a sandwich, we'll just do half a sandwich with tons of meat loaded on there. Or a lot of times he just takes what we call a smorgasbord. That's what we call it, smorgasbord lunch. There's some rolled up lunch meat, there's some carrots, there's some grapes, there's you know, just a bunch of things in a pack to pick up and eat. Yeah.
Yes, that's great.
The smorgasbord lunch. And then my daughter, like I told you, she can heat her food at lunch, so she takes whatever was for dinner last night, right, and she just heats it up.
Oh, that's great.
And he'll be able to do that next year too at his school, which makes it nice.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great, because lunches they always stump.
They do
parents.
stump.
They do.
They do stump.
They do.
So,
and you know, I mentioned to you earlier that we were shocked that my son decided he wanted to eat school lunch, and we're trying to really get away from that, because we want him to be able to have this healthy lunch and us to be able to control that a little bit more. But being creative and coming up with new things is always a challenge, though.
It is a challenge. Like I was telling you, sometimes I'm like, oh, if I have to pack another lunch, you know. But kids are pretty much creatures of habit, and they're okay with taking the same thing a lot of days. But all of a sudden, my kids will get burnt out, and they'll be like, do not buy. We can't have ham for a while. No more ham. Just no, Mom.
That's great.
So you have to find something else. And
and move on to something else for a little while.
Move on to something else.
That's really good. This was wonderful.
Oh, it's been
Thank
great.
you so much.
Yeah.
So how about we hop over to the kitchen?
Okay.
We'll show them your recipe. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be perfect.
Okay.
All right, cool.
Good.
Thanks.